My mother told me when I was about 8 years old that my father's guitar was off limits and to absolutely not touch it, ever. And so I got started by absolutely touching my father's guitar every chance I could get. And you know, I kind of grew up in a small town, but it was sort of it was something that my parents encouraged. They had a kind of cosmopolitan view of things, and so I grew up listening. My mother had good taste in music, so I listened to Sergio Mendes and Herb Alpert and Jose Feliciano and a lot of Burt Bacharach, and that's the kind of stuff that she listened to coming up. And when we got money from our grandmother one year to spend on a present, we decided to buy Jackson 5's Greatest Hits, which opened the possibility of a kid our age being successful, doing upper echelon music, you know, and working with people at Motown and that kind of thing. So where you think it's impossible because you can't see a pathway there, certain people inspire you along the way. Michael Jackson was very much that way because he was confounding everyone in every category. His dancing was superior to adults trying to do it. Fred Astaire was saying he was the best mover he'd seen in years, and his singing and all of that. First time I remember seeing someone go through his stages of adolescence and building a persona and all of that. So yeah, we did look to them as our inspiration. The problem being that back then, if you played guitar and wanted to be a musician, at that age all the way through high school, you were referred to in my hometown as a faggot, which is kind of tough when you think about it, because the whole reason you're learning to play guitar is to get in a band, which is to get as many girls as possible. So I always thought that they missed the whole context of the musician thing. So I was feverishly into composition early on. I wasn't into the technical aspects of playing because I thought people that were just playing songs that were technically difficult, it was interesting in a mechanical sort of way. But someone who would write a great song that had more of a sense of Beethoven to it, to where 700 years after you're dead, people in every country on the planet still say your name, know your name, that kind of thing. They're not going to remember the guy who played a lot of fast notes. I don't think any of us know the guy who wrote The Flight of the Bumblebee, but I think we all know Symphony No. 9 probably. So I was really inspired by, my father took me to see a symphony from Austria, and they came out and played, and I started weeping uncontrollably. It was music in a completely natural context. So I was inspired that way. And when I look at it from the viewpoint of, from there to actually getting from a small town like Cary, and how do you get to playing in these bigger clubs back then you have to take on the political aspects. How do you get a good agent that doesn't rip you off, and all of those difficult things that you had to take on. How do you lead a band? How does the band appeal without kowtowing to a demographic, so on and so forth. So that's what we did. We did all of that. Yeah, past that point, and I got this band together called Theatrics, and at the time cover bands were playing to big clubs. This is when the drinking age was 18, and so Van Halen was the big band at the time, and none of us could sing high like Steve Perry and Journey or any of those guys, but I could sound like David Lee Roth. So we decided to cover a lot of that, The problem being I had to learn all those Van Halen guitar parts, which was, you know, every day, all day long, 5 hours a day. So how I started was I went in the basement for 5 hours a day, sometimes 6 hours a day, and just played and played and played. And finally got it. I'll never be able to play those guitar parts like he does. But it was enough to remind audiences who've had a couple of beers about the guitar parts on the records. And through that I met a lot of really great musicians. And I got a mentor, a drummer in a band called PKM, this guy named Kenny Soul, who he was my Obi-Wan Kenobi of sorts, and he taught me how to navigate, you know, the social aspects of interacting with the right people and recognizing threats and all of this stuff within the industry. He'd been in a band called Nantucket that had had a bad ride with some shady management and some bad experiences at some record labels. So he taught me all of that. And then I had a mentor named Byron McKay. He was in the very first punk rock band here called the Cigarettes in 1979. They were signed, they went to New York. He got addicted to heroin and didn't come home for years. Kicked heroin, started a studio here on Western Boulevard here in Raleigh. And he mentored me in the studio thing, you know, kind of how to identify with an artist, how to get to the original intent of the songwriting, and how to show that not only do you understand what the artist wants to do, but that you care about it as much as the artist does, because it's your name on it as well as theirs. And through that, that's when I started working with Corrosion of Conformity and all of that. In the meantime, I lived in New York for a while, and I was a session guitar player. I had a mentor up there named Michael Montez. He created a thing called sound design, which is common now, you know. But it just had started there. And he was the New York mentor. He would make me listen to records so that I would be able to dissect what's going on, you know, in the production. And he would ask me questions about what's going on with this as far as, you know, the orchestration. And I would get the answer wrong, and he would hit me in the head and say, yeah, he'd say, your redneck ass is going back to Raleigh if you get another one wrong. And he would threaten me all the time with having to go back home. He was a great mentor, and he taught me quite a bit. So that's what it was. When I was in New York, I didn't eat, you know. I was 20 pounds lighter than I was when I was a little senior in high school. And when I came home, my mother was, she wasn't ready to see me that way. She thought I had AIDS or something like that, you know. This is 1987, so could have been, yeah. And she collapsed when she saw me, and I just told her no, I didn't eat, you know. I didn't have that much money to live there. So you know, so that was the thing where you either believe in what you're doing or not.